Welcome to the Blessed Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raquel Tolson, and this podcast is to help you experience being blessed that transcends a mere hashtag. Now, you guys know I am a firm believer that being blessed is a mindset. We have to make a daily decision to be blessed. Every week, I'll interview guests who have elevated their thinking and exercised their faith to live their blessed lives. I'm broadcasting on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, a nonprofit radio broadcast with the mission to empower, encourage, and educate. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing on Blessed, please donate. Go to www.wytv7.org. So if you're ready to be encouraged and entertained, then you are in the right place. Today's podcast is sponsored by Tolson's Publishing. We have a new Christmas novella, I Need a Christmas Angel. It will be released on Friday, December 11th, right in time for Christmas. But guess what? You can purchase the song with the same title for only 99 cents on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Tidal, and Pandora, and probably some other places. So go and get the song so you can be ready for the book. Our guest today is an author. Her name is Pat Simmons, and she's from St. Louis, Missouri. Woo-hoo-hoo. But hey, so y'all, this is the third week in a row that I have invited somebody on Blessed who I didn't know like from years ago. I met Pat at a function last week for authors, and oh my gosh, you guys are gonna love her. Let me just read a quick bio. Pat Simmons is a multi-published Christian romance author with more than 35 titles. She is a self-proclaimed genealogy sleuth, I love that, who is passionate about researching her ancestors, then casting them in starring roles in her novels. How cool is that? She is a 3-time recipient of the Romance Slam Jam Emma Rogers Award for Best Inspirational Romance. Without further ado, welcome, Pat. Thank you for being on.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. Boy, you made me sound so exciting. So I hope I don't disappoint.
You are excited. I mean, just when you think about this stuff, what you do as far, first of all, let's just say 35 books. Girl, that's a lot of writing. I'm just saying that's a lot of writing.
Who knew? Who knew when I started off I would go this far? Who knew? I didn't. I did not.
Well, and then I love how you say you do your genealogy for your family and then you cast them. So then you like give us a story about them. That's awesome. What made you decide to do that?
When my great-grandmother passed away, nobody knew how old she was. My father used to always say, that woman is near 100. No one really knew.
Uh-huh.
And so when she passed away at the very young age of 97,
oh wow,
that's what sparked me to do genealogy, to find out how old she really was. And when I found her as a little kid, my mind like, oh my God, grandma really was a kid. I mean, it's just, she has been this older woman with long white hair since I was a child. And then to see her on the census in 1900 as a child, and to see that she had twin siblings.
Wow.
And then in addition to the twin siblings, I found my great-grandmother's grandmother and found that we had 3 generations of twins because my grandmother was a twin. Wow. And so that just sparked my interest into genealogy, is bringing to life our ancestors and realizing they had a life. And when I got the first book deal, I was still doing genealogy, and I wanted to make sure that I honored my ancestors by naming one of my characters the name. And then in the back of my books, I would put a tidbit about them in hopes that one of my relatives would read them and like, you know what? We got a Brownlee too. And then so from there, with the very first book, there's 3 generations of Charlottes in my family. So of course, my character's mother had to be named Charlotte, but I was looking for a distinguished name for a last name that people will remember. So if you said, well, have you read the Williams brother? What, who? Have you read the Smiths? Who? But I said, Jameson. I like Jameson. That's distinguished. So Jameson was my character's last name. Charlotte was honoring my great grandmother. So the Jamesons were born. And so Charlotte not only is my grandmother, but she was named after her grandmother. And so Charlotte Wilkerson had two sons. She was a mulatto and a guest in the slaveholder's house fathered two of her children, which was my great grandfather. But I couldn't find them on the 1870 census. And I'm like, of course they live because here I am.
Right.
So I asked some genealogy friends, can you track down Charlotte Wilkerson and her son, William Wilkerson, and, Sam Wilkerson? And they came back to me. They said, well, girl, the reason why you can't find Charlotte Wilkerson in 1870 was because she was in the slaveholder's house, Robert Jameson.
No
and
way.
I just like, wow. And here I thought I pulled this name.
You thought you just came up with the name.
And that was like, Lord, okay, I'm on the right track. And so I always like to tell that story. So genealogy has played a part in my writing. And so today that series, it's 9 books strong. And so it's just a testimony where God will let you know that you're on the right track. So the Jameson legacy, I am associated with the Jamesons because they were the slaveholders of Charlotte Jameson Wilkerson, who later died 80 years old and went back to Jameson. And I have it in the history books that she died in the backyard of another one of the largest slaveholders, the Carradines in Mississippi. So fascinating story. So people should know about their ancestors. That's where our strength comes from.
So let me just say this. When you were telling me that story, you said, I just got goosebumps because one of the things I have been saying for a while now, and when my mother passed 10 years ago, it was a lot. It was a lot. But what eventually got me through the whole grieving process was to realize that our spirit is energy. And I remember I was good in science. In science, we were taught that energy cannot be destroyed. Our bodies may be gone, but our spirit is energy, cannot be destroyed. So I'm not saying I believe in like ghosts walking and haunting houses. I'm not going to say that, but I believe that the spirit, that energy can always surround us. So that's why our ancestors can get us messages. And one of your ancestors gave you that message that Jameson, it didn't just pop in your head.
No.
It was given to you.
Yeah, I believe God. I give God the credit for that. I give God the credit, and I'm thankful that I do have history of my ancestors to keep me grounded and to keep me humble. Who am I to think I don't have to do this and that? And my ancestors toiled in the fields for 12 hours and cleaned outhouses. And who am I? Who am I? Who do I really think I am? That my ancestors worked really hard for me to have what I have. And so that kind of keeps me with humility, just knowing that I have what I have today because of their endurance, that they decided I will live, I will not die. So yeah.
And because our ancestors, they were rooted in God.
Yes.
They were rooted in God. People can say what they want to say about the Africans that was brought over here. They were rooted in God, the spirit of God, and they because they were God. We are, what I'm saying? They were rooted, and they knew that they could overcome because they were, God was in them and was going to see them through everything. And so they were amazing people.
Yes.
They were amazing people to endure what they did.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But let's talk about Christmas dinner, because let me just tell you, that's one of the things about Christmas that I love is Christmas dinner. But when I was reading your with the synopsis, these are the things that like just jumped out at me. Okay, And so I'm gonna let you tell the story, but I'm just gonna tell you what jumped out at me.
Okay.
All right. She was, and it's all D's, and it's just so happened that her name was Darcel. It's so funny because everything is like D's. So she was devastated by the death of her daddy. Then she was disappointed and she was depressed. Now, all of those things I don't think about when I don't think Christmas dinner, I don't associate Christmas dinner with those things.
Right.
So I was just like, wow, this book is about to be heavy. So can you talk about what made you do Christmas dinner and involving all of the devastation and disappointment and depression at the Christmas dinner?
Well, for the past 7 years, I provided readers with a Christmas story.
Okay.
I like to read the magic of Christmas in movies. I don't like to read it. I like to read the reason for the season. And so, I don't get caught up in all the commercial, not saying anything is wrong with all the, the lit trees and houses. They're beautiful, but I want people to look beyond that season. And maybe if the reason for the season sparks you to maybe help feed your neighbors or something like that, maybe that'll carry you throughout the year. So basically, God gave me this title 2 years ago, Christmas Dinner. He had given it to me like in January, and I'm like, okay, no characters, no theme. I just knew we were going to eat Christmas dinner like you. I just knew it was going to be around the table. And I knew God gave me this title. The title was non-negotiable, but I had no characters. I had no plot. I had no clue. And throughout the year, through a series of events, God started to show me this is what Christmas dinner is about. This is ministering to people that aren't happy-go-lucky. Girl, I got $1,000 on my credit card. Let's go shopping. Everyone does not experience Christmas like that. If you've lost a loved one during Christmas, it's hard. It's hard to have that empty plate at the dinner table. It's hard.
So
So,
many people are going to be there this year.
yeah. And so, how do you entertain but encourage them around the holidays? And so throughout that year, for some reason, I was hearing about so and so young person committed suicide, so and so depressed, so and so. I mean, and so I was starting to get it, but then it hit real close to home, and I was asking, how, why? We just got through talking about our ancestors being strong and they survived and we're here. And so when it comes to depression and anxiety, we brush it off. And so, girl, I'm just having a down day. Oh, girl, you'll be fine. But we really need to listen. And when our newly elected vice president said, I'm speaking, so many times when people are dealing with issues, mental issues, anxiety, bipolar, depression, or whatever, they're speaking. Are we listening?
Mm-hmm.
And so this story was really designed for us to evaluate ourselves when someone is coming to us. Are we listening? Because, we lost a very dear friend, devastated to depression. And we have to ask ourselves, did we know? Did we see signs? And so I want this book to enable readers to maybe see some signs or maybe not brush off somebody. If my daughter or my son is saying, Mom, I'm just down, I'm depressed, I don't brush it off. I'm like, okay, I'm there, let's go. We really need to pay attention. And in this atmosphere of stay at home and distancing, COVID may not kill a person directly, but they can affect a person's lifestyle because they can't hug and kiss and be around that loved one. And so we really need to pay attention to a person's mental health. We all are stressed in life, job, children, anything could stress us, but can we bounce back?
Yeah,
And
that's
when
so
we
good.
can't bounce back, then we need intervention.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like this time. I was just talking to my editor, and we were talking about just how even the strongest of us right now with the COVID, with the civil distress, I mean, with the current administration not, wanting to give up, and it feels like we are in a different country because they're trying to take away the democracy of the country. It's an overwhelming sadness, even for people who are strong and we know that God has got us not, but it's an overwhelming sadness. And I know I have found myself watching a television show where they depict somebody died of COVID and tears are falling, or when you see, somebody, the George Floyd, I mean, just tears, just the sadness, and it's real easy, like you said, to because we're locked in our houses. Some of us are working from home. Some of us aren't working at all, and we don't have people maybe to talk to, right. When we're talking on the phone, and some of us have got it down to camouflage our voices and make it sound like we okay.
Right.
Because you can't see, you're not, if you were in my space, you would feel my energy and you would know something not right. But over the phone, it's like, you might not be able to hear it so much.
But sometimes we can be in a person's presence. I think the best commercial is when you see the lady walking around with the sign. Have you seen that? And the sign is her smiling.
Right.
You don't see behind the sign. So a lot of times people can be in our presence and we just shake it off. But, God wanted to minister to people, to reach out and pay attention. And when people are listening, to try to read between the lines. And now during this COVID atmosphere, we have to be more mindful. And one thing that I try to do when people say, well, girl, I'm going through, pray for me, I just stop. I'm like, well, let's pray right now. Because I don't want to say, I'm going to pray for you. And I mean it wholeheartedly. And then my life is constantly distracted. And then it's like, oh, so and so. So I just pray on the spot. I just believe you. Okay, I got 30 seconds. I got a minute. How much? What do you need? Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's real important. And I'm just hoping with Christmas dinner that people will not only enjoy the love story and they will enjoy the inspiration, but that they'll get a message. And the book just came out, I think, Tuesday. And today I got my first review and the lady got it. I mean, and it's good to read reviews because you wonder if people are getting the message that you're trying to convey. Mm-hmm. And this book was so hard because, oh my gosh, just trying to do a good job because God told me to do it and to make sure that the message is out there. The message, one thing about writing Christian novels or nonfiction or novels is the message.
It's the message.
And if people don't get the message, you've entertained them, but they don't get the message. And this message worked me over. So I want people to get the message.
It's funny because even with like the music, the difference, and you don't have to beat people over the head with the message. Right. But it's a message, and it's like, can they is there something that God wants to say? Even if it's, I can get it in people that aren't Christian writers. I've gotten it in those too, because I'm one of those people. I'm like, God, whoever you're using, I want a message. I'm always looking for a word from you. I don't just look at it. I don't just turn on TBN or, Christian. I'm like, God, send me a message. I have gotten messages on Disney Channel. Okay. I have gotten messages that God will give it, but it's really important. And that's why as a writer, a Christian who is a writer, I always like to say, a Christian who's a writer, I know that God is going to use me. And so I'm always like, there has to be a message in all of that. Right. So because I have to point people to the hope because there is hope. in God.
Right.
And it has to be a hopeful thing, because even now, all the stuff that we're going through, there's hope.
And that's when you really have to depend on the scriptures, because if you look with your eyes, you will feel hopeless in this situation. And I just thank Jesus for scriptures that I can say, but God, you said, but God, you said the weapons of our warfare is not carnal, but the pulling down, that's when we really have to get the word in us, because there's our hope. Because woohoo, who would have thought that COVID would have gone? What, we're into
We started in March.
eight months now? Who would have thought? But we've never experienced anything like that. And I was reading on a genealogy board, when you're going back looking at relatives and you're looking at, the cholera outbreak and just massive deaths, they said it's going to be interesting, if God allows the world to still be here, and people look back in our generation and see all these people, did everyone die of COVID? And so I thought that from a genealogy standpoint, I didn't think about that, but I'm just hoping with this book that I do provide hope. I provide better understanding. I believe in family bonding. I just believe in love, which is why I write romance. But I figure if I'm going to write 200 pages and you're going to spend your money, let me give you something, something concrete. So
Yes, I agree.
that's kind of what it's about in an overall nutshell.
Right. So Pat, how can somebody that's listening, how can they find you and find your books?
My books are online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. The ebooks are available, Google Books, Kobo, everywhere. Some of my non-Christian books, like this book, is there in bookstores, but this isn't. It may be in some libraries soon, but my website is patsimmons.net. If they Google me, Christian author Pat Simmons, I'll come up. I'm on social media, I'm everywhere.
Okay, so on social media, it's Pat Simmons?
I'm on Twitter as Pat Simmons. I'm on Instagram as author Pat Simmons, because there's another Pat Simmons, and I don't think she wants all my readers coming asking her about Christmas dinner. And I'm on Facebook too as Pat Simmons. So yeah.
Okay. So I just want to hold up your book again for the people, for the audience.
This is my notebook, because my copy isn't here yet. So this is just a notebook.
Okay, because I like that. But I have a question though. So there, Christmas dinner, do you give us some recipes?
Girl, no, I do not. I am a caregiver. My 90-year-old mother-in-law lives with me, and she is downstairs throwing down now with sweet potatoes and pork chops. I don't, why should I cook when I have the cook living with me? And a lot of authors are really big into recipes. I'm just not the one. I'd rather eat than cook.
Me too. I'm the same way. I'm going to eat. Right now, my son, my 26-year-old son, he usually does the cooking for us.
Wow.
I'm not the cook. I like to, it's not that I can't cook.
Right.
I can cook if I need to cook, but because I don't like it, I feel like people that don't like to cook shouldn't cook, because there's a special energy that goes, if you love to cook, I think your food just gonna taste a little bit better.
Yeah, I feel you. When my children were small, I cooked nutritious meals because I had to take care of them. As soon as my daughter took a home ec in high school, baby, you on your own. Yes, I feel you. I feel you. I'm there.
I love meeting like-minded people.
I'm there with you, baby. I'm there.
Not gonna make me feel bad. I love it. I'm excited about Christmas dinner. I'm gonna have to get the book and I'm gonna have to read it, because it sounds like it's a book that we should read, because we all do encounter people that are going through, and there should be some signs that we look for. And also, just in our community, one of the things I want to say before we end, it's okay to get help. It's okay. You don't just have to get help from Big Mama, the hair, the lady that do your hair, or going to a bar and talking to the bartender. Seek professional help. It's okay.
It is
You would
okay.
go to the doctor if you couldn't shake a headache.
Right.
We would go to a doctor. If you can't shake a bad feeling, bad thought, go to the doctor.
Right.
You know,
Correct. Right.
and I'm not discounting the counselors at the churches either. I'm not discounting.
Right. Right.
But I personally believe that we should go to doctors.
Right. And I think, and I put that,
and
and I did include that in the book, and I included that conversation because in the Black community, even in the church community, we think we have it all together. But wasn't Peter the great physician? God has nothing against physicians. He is the master physicians, and our physicians here are practicing. And so that's what they are there for, And so I wanted to make sure it was a Christian book, but I also wanted to make sure I addressed, the taboo in the Black community and in the church. Seek professional care, just like we would for diabetes or high blood pressure. We need to make stop taboo. Stop it. And take your medicine until God tells you something else. Take
okay. So I wrote a book called, my very first book was Just a Little Talk with Jesus, and it was about my depression that I went through.
Okay.
And then I think I was like, you know what? It's okay to pray and take Prozac. I'm just saying, it's okay.
That's okay.
Your taking the Prozac does not negate the fact that you think that prayer works. That's not what that means. That's just like telling a diabetic to not take their insulin because they praying. It doesn't make sense. Every good and perfect gift comes from God. So those doctors that created those medications for a minute. Now I'm a pharmacist by trade, and I'm disillusioned with the pharmacy profession because we give drugs too much, and we don't because I don't think it's just drugs. I think counseling is a huge part of it. You understand? But sometimes we just throw drugs at people, like even with a diabetic, you can give them the insulin, but they might need to have somebody do their diet for them. Right. They might need a trainer to do some exercise. So it's a little bit of everything. We're a whole person. So I just think that it's important for people just to understand that let's start taking a taboo out of mental health.
Right, correct. And I think hopefully after they read this, they will, one thing about my readers, I give them subjects and they just give them pause to just think. No pointing fingers, but just evaluate yourself. Is there anything I could do better or say better or encourage more?
Yeah. I love that. Just how can I encourage somebody? And I still have to go back to what you said at the beginning, the signs. And one thing I love about what's been going on, we have been doing Zooms more than just talking on the phone.
Right.
And our family, we get together and we get to see each other. And we're on the phone for like 2 hours, on the Zoom for 2 hours. So, we looking at everything, even though somebody else might be talking, we looking at somebody who's not talking and seeing what's going on there. It may sound weird, but that's why I love the Zoom. Because when you're talking, you may put on the face, but when you're just listening, sometimes it flips.
Right.
And so I'm just focused on what's going on with you when you're not talking. Well, I have enjoyed you. Our time is about up.
Thank you so much.
I have so enjoyed you. I hope my listeners will go out and get the book, Christmas Dinner by Pat Simmons. Christmas Dinner by Pat Simmons. It sounds like you will be blessed when you read this book, and share it with other people. Again, you can find her at patsimmons.net. Pat Simmons with 2 M's.net. Thank you, Pat, for being here. Thank you guys for being here with us. And until next week, remember what God has done for others, He can do the same thing for you. All you have to do is believe and start exercising your faith. Until next week.